Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Vengeance's edge and stared at the empty space ahead. 300 years had passed since Earth died. 300 years since the galaxy turned its back on humanity and let 12 billion people burn. He clenched his fists and felt the old anger rise in his chest like a fire that never went out. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. His crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. They were good people. All of them. Every single human left alive was either a soldier, a scientist, or an engineer. There was no room for anything else. Not anymore. Lieutenant Sophie Hayes sat at the engineering console, her fingers moving across the controls. She was young, only 25. But she had the same look in her eyes that all humans had now, a look that said she remembered. Even though she had never seen Earth, she remembered. "Commander," Sophie said without looking up. "All systems are ready. We can jump whenever you give the order." Jake nodded. "Hold position. I want to show you something first." He touched a button on his command chair, and a holographic screen appeared in the center of the bridge. The crew stopped their work and turned to watch. They had all seen this recording before, but Jake made them watch it again every few months. He needed them to remember why they were here, why they were doing this. The screen showed Earth as it had been in 2567. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. 12 billion people living their lives, working, loving, dreaming. The camera view pulled back to show the orbital stations, the moon colonies, the massive space elevators reaching up from the surface. Then, the view changed. It showed the council chambers, a huge building on the planet Zentara, where representatives from 47 alien species made decisions for the galaxy. The human ambassador stood before them, a woman named Catherine Wells. Her face was pale with fear. "Please," Catherine said in the recording, "the Devourers will reach Earth in 6 months. We need help. We need ships, weapons, anything you can spare. Humanity has been a loyal member of the Council for 20 years. We have shared our technology, our culture, our friendship. Please do not abandon us now." High Counselor Tharn, a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms, looked down at her from his seat. His face showed no emotion at all. "The Council has considered your request," Tharn said. "We have studied the tactical situation. Earth's position is not defensible. The resources required to mount a successful defense would leave our core worlds vulnerable. The Council has decided that human space will be designated a sacrifice zone. All Council forces will withdraw immediately. We are sorry, but this is the logical choice." Catherine fell to her knees. "You are condemning 12 billion people to death. How is that logical? How is that right?" "It is necessary," Tharn replied. "The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. The Council's decision is final." The recording jumped forward in time. Now it showed Earth from space, but everything was different. Massive black ships, organic and twisted, surrounded the planet. These were the Devourers, creatures from beyond the galaxy that consumed all life they found. They were hungry, and they were patient. The view switched to a transmission from Earth's surface. A woman stood in what looked like a military command center. Alarms blared in the background. Explosions shook the camera. "This is Major Linda Price broadcasting on all frequencies," the woman said. Her voice was steady despite the chaos around her. "The Devourers have broken through our last orbital defense. They will reach the surface in less than an hour. The Council has abandoned us. They had the power to save us, and they chose not to. We fought with everything we had. It was not enough. To any humans who survive, remember us. Remember what the Council did. Remember that we died alone while 47 species watched and did nothing. Make them pay. Make them all pay." The transmission ended in static. The holographic screen showed the final satellite images of Earth. The black ships descended like a swarm of insects. Where they touched the surface, everything died. Forests, cities, oceans, All of it turned gray and lifeless. In 72 hours, Earth was a dead rock. Not a single blade of grass remained. Jake turned off the recording. The bridge was silent. He saw tears on Sophie's face. Her grandmother had died down there, broadcasting until the very last second. 12 billion people, Jake said quietly. 12 billion men, women, and children. The council could have saved them. They had the weapons. They had the ships. They chose to let Earth die because it was easier than fighting. Because saving us might have cost them something. He stood up from his command chair and looked at each member of his crew. Only 12 million humans survived. Colony ships that were far from Earth. Deep space stations. Research outposts. We scattered into the darkness and hid for 300 years. The council thought we were extinct. They thought they could forget about us and move on with their comfortable lives. They were wrong. Jake touched another button, and a tactical map appeared. It showed human space as it existed now. 15 hidden stations in dead star systems, 200 warships, thousands of fighters, all of it built in secret over 3 centuries. We spent 300 years preparing for this moment, Jake continued. Every human alive has trained for war. Our children learned to fight before they learned to read. Our scientists built weapons the council cannot imagine. Our engineers created ships that can destroy anything the galaxy has. We are ready. Sophie stood up from her station. What are your orders, Commander? Jake smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We begin. Send the signal to all human forces. Operation Reckoning is now active. The Council is about to learn that humanity remembers, and we are done hiding. Across human space, 200 warships received the signal simultaneously. Captains opened sealed orders they had carried for years. Pilots climbed into their fighters. Scientists activated weapons systems that had been tested 1,000 times. Every human alive knew this day was coming. Now it was finally here. On the bridge of Vengeance's edge, Jake watched his crew prepare for battle. These people were all that remained of Earth. They carried the memories of 12 billion dead. They carried 300 years of grief and anger. And now, finally, they would have their revenge. All stations report ready, Sophie announced. Then let us remind the galaxy that humanity existed, Jake said. Let us show them what happens when you abandon your allies. Jump coordinates locked in. Engage. The Vengeance's edge jumped into hyperspace, and with it, the first shot of humanity's war began. The Council had 300 years of peace. That peace was about to end. In fire and blood, the reckoning had begun. The station called Haven's Rest floated in the darkness between stars. Invisible to any scanner the Council possessed, it was the largest of humanity's hidden homes, a massive structure that housed 2 million people. Inside the main research bay, Dr. Gregory Nash stood before a holographic display and smiled at what he saw. Beautiful, he whispered. Absolutely beautiful. The display showed a weapon system unlike anything the galaxy had ever created. It was an AI-controlled drone network. Thousands of small ships that could think and adapt faster than any organic mind. The Council had banned this kind of technology 1,000 years ago, afraid of what intelligent machines might do. Humanity had no such fears. Not anymore. Dr. Nash was 70 years old, but he looked 50 thanks to the advanced medical treatments humans had developed in their isolation. He had spent his entire life working on weapons. His parents had survived Earth's fall by being on a mining station in deep space. They taught him to hate the Council with every breath. He had learned that lesson well. Captain Lisa Chen entered the research bay, her footsteps echoing in the huge space. She was 32, tall and lean with short black hair and cold eyes. She commanded the Shadow's Price, a stealth ship designed for infiltration and assassination. She had killed more Council soldiers than anyone else in the human fleet. Dr. Nash, Lisa said, I need an update on the Reaper protocol. Admiral Morgan wants to know if we can deploy in 72 hours. Gregory turned away from the display and nodded. We can deploy right now if needed. I have been ready for 5 years. Every drone is in position throughout Council space. They are hidden in asteroid fields, disguised as space debris, buried in the hulls of derelict ships. The moment we activate them, they will strike at 300 Council military installations simultaneously. Lisa allowed herself a small smile. Good. The Admiral wants maximum impact on day 1. We need the Council to understand immediately that this is not a minor threat. This is an extinction-level event for their military. They will understand, Gregory assured her. Each drone carries enough firepower to destroy a small station. Working together, they can take down anything short of a Council flagship, and they learn from every engagement. Every time the Council tries a new tactic, the drones adapt. Within a week, no Council captain will know how to fight them. Lisa walked over to the holographic display and studied the drone network. Red dots showed their positions throughout the galaxy. There were so many of them, like a constellation of vengeance, waiting to ignite. My grandmother died on Earth, Lisa said quietly. She was a teacher. 3rd grade. She loved children and believed the best way to change the world was to educate the next generation. When the Devourers came, she stayed with her students. She held their hands while they died. I was 6 years old, living on a colony station with my parents. I heard her final transmission. Gregory said nothing. Every human had a story like this. Every single one of them had lost someone on Earth. I want the Council to suffer, Lisa continued. Not just die. I want them to feel the fear my grandmother felt. I want them to watch their world burn and know there is no help coming. Just like they watched Earth burn. They will, Gregory promised. Operation Reckoning will make sure of it. Across the station, in the training bays, Lieutenant Ben Cooper climbed into his fighter simulator. He was 23 years old and had never seen Earth except in recordings. But he had been trained since childhood to fight for it anyway. The simulator activated, and Ben found himself in a cockpit surrounded by stars. Immediately, enemy fighters appeared on his sensors. Council ships, Kryn Dominion warcraft. Fast and deadly, the simulation began. Ben's hands moved across the controls with practiced ease. His fighter rolled and dove through space, dodging energy blasts and returning fire. The human fighters were smaller than Council ships but faster and more maneuverable. Ben had spent 10,000 hours in simulators and another 1,000 in real combat drills. He was one of the best pilots humanity had. The simulation ended after 20 minutes. Ben had destroyed 15 enemy fighters without taking a single hit. Not his best score, but good enough. He climbed out of the simulator and found his squadron leader waiting for him. Commander Danny Wright was 40 years old, a veteran pilot who had been flying since he was 16. He had gray hair at his temples and scars on his hands from a training accident years ago. He looked at Ben's scores and nodded with approval. Good run, Danny said. But you hesitated on that 3rd kill. Half a second. In a real fight, that half second gets you killed. Yes, sir, Ben replied. You better. We jump to our first target in 60 hours. After that, there are no more simulations. Every fight is real. Every mistake is fatal. The Council has been at peace for a century. They have forgotten how to really fight. We have done nothing but prepare for war. That is our advantage, but only if we are perfect. Ben understood. Humanity numbered only 12 million souls. The Council species numbered in the trillions. Humans could not afford to lose ships or pilots. Every battle had to be won decisively with minimal casualties. There was no room for error. In another section of Haven's Rest, Admiral Patricia Morgan sat in her office and reviewed the fleet deployment plans. She was 65 years old, the oldest serving officer in the human military. She had been 15 when Earth fell, living on a research station with her parents. She watched Earth die on a monitor screen while her mother held her and wept. Patricia had spent 50 years building this fleet. 50 years of construction, training, planning. Every ship, every weapon, every tactical doctrine had been designed with one purpose: destroy the Council's military power and make them pay for abandoning humanity. The office door opened, and Jake Morrison entered. He saluted crisply. "Admiral," Jake said. "All fleet commanders report ready for deployment. We can begin operations on your order." "Admiral." Jake 7. 8. All fleet. Patricia looked at him for a long moment. Jake was 40 years old. One of her best commanders. His parents had died on Earth. He had been raised by his uncle on a colony station, trained from childhood to be a warrior. Like all humans, he carried the weight of 12 billion dead on his shoulders. "Sit down, Jake," Patricia said. He sat across from her desk and waited. Patricia poured 2 glasses of water from a pitcher and slid one across to him. "I need to know you are ready for this," she said. "Not just tactically. Emotionally. Mentally. Once we start, there is no going back. We will be at war with the entire Council. Trillions of beings will see us as monsters. They will not understand why we are doing this. They will only see humans killing their soldiers and destroying their property." Jake took a sip of water and met her eyes. "I am ready, Admiral. We all are. This is what we were born for. What we trained for." The Council made their choice 300 years ago. They chose to let 12 billion humans die rather than risk their own comfort. Now they will face the consequences of that choice. "Some Council species wanted to help us," Patricia reminded him. "Not all of them voted to abandon Earth. Should they suffer for the sins of the majority?" "They stood by and did nothing," Jake said. His voice was hard as steel. "That makes them complicit. If you see someone drowning, and you have the means to save them but choose not to, you are responsible for their death." The Council watched Earth drown. "Every species that did not fight to save us bears the guilt." Patricia nodded slowly. She had expected that answer. It was the answer she would have given herself. "Very well," she said. "Operation Reckoning begins in 72 hours. First wave targets are Council military outposts in the outer sectors. 12 systems, simultaneous strikes. We destroy their communications, their supply depots, their sensor networks. We want them blind and confused. Second wave hits deeper, targeting their patrol fleets and response forces. Third wave goes for their major installations. By the end of week 1, the Council's entire outer defense network should be gone." Jake nodded. "What about civilian casualties?" "Avoid them completely," Patricia ordered. "This is not genocide. This is justice. We target military assets only. Any commander who causes unnecessary civilian deaths will answer to me personally. We are not the Council. We do not punish the innocent for the crimes of the guilty." "Understood, Admiral." Patricia stood and walked to the window of her office. Outside, she could see the vast interior of Haven's Rest. People walked the streets, children played in parks. Life continued as it had for 3 centuries. But everyone knew what was coming. Everyone was ready. "My mother used to tell me a story," Patricia said quietly. "An old Earth story about an elephant that never forgets. The Council thought humanity would die. My mother, also Sci, they thought we would scatter and fade away like smoke. They forgot that humans remember. We remember everything. And we never forgive. They would break into not. I would bika. And create into not. And Samad." She turned back to Jake. "Send the order. All fleet commanders are to proceed to their jump points. Operation Reckoning is now active. The Council's 300 years of peace end today." Jake saluted and left the office. Patricia stood alone and looked out at her people. 12 million humans against a galaxy. It should have been impossible. But humanity had spent 300 years making the impossible their specialty. The reckoning was coming. And the galaxy would burn. Commander Vorin sat in the control center of Regional Defense Station Triumph and tried not to fall asleep. The station orbited a minor gas giant in the outer sectors, monitoring shipping lanes and watching for pirates. It was boring work. Nothing interesting had happened in the 3 years Vorin had been stationed here. Vorin was a saurid, a reptilian species from the hot world of Saurus Prime. He had green scales, yellow eyes, and a tail that twitched when he was annoyed. Right now, his tail was very still. He was too bored to even be annoyed. "Commander," one of his junior officers called out. "I am picking up unknown sensor contacts, multiple vessels dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system." Vorin sighed and pulled up the tactical display. Probably smugglers trying to avoid the main shipping routes. He had dealt with a dozen such groups in the past month. They would run when they saw the station's weapons powering up. "How many ships?" Vorin asked. 8 contacts, Commander. Medium-sized vessels. Configuration unknown. They are not matching any known profiles in our database." That was unusual. Vorin leaned forward in his chair and studied the sensor data more carefully. The ships were definitely not standard Council designs. They had odd energy signatures, powerful engines, and what looked like military-grade weapons. "Hail them," Vorin ordered. "Standard security protocol. Identify yourselves and state your business in Council space." The communications officer tried to establish contact. After a moment, she shook her head. "No response, Commander. They are ignoring our hails." Vorin's tail started to twitch. This was not normal smuggler behavior. Smugglers usually either ran or surrendered when challenged. They did not ignore military stations. "Raise shields," Vorin said. "Charge weapons. If they do not respond in 30 seconds, we will fire a warning shot across their bow." The unknown ships suddenly accelerated, moving far faster than any Council vessel could match. They spread out in perfect formation and began closing on the station. Vorin had just enough time to realize this was an attack before the first missiles hit. The explosions were massive. Triumph's shield generators, designed to withstand pirate weapons and small asteroids, simply vanished in balls of fire. Alarms screamed throughout the station. Vorin grabbed his command console as the entire structure shook. "Return fire," he shouted. "All weapons, engage those ships." The station's plasma cannons swiveled and fired, sending bright green bolts of energy toward the attacking vessels. The human ships dodged with impossible grace, their movements too fast and precise for the station's targeting computers to track. More missiles struck Triumph, tearing through hull plating and destroying weapon emplacements. On the bridge of Vengeance's edge, Jake Morrison watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The Council station was exactly where intelligence had said it would be. And it was responding exactly as predicted. Slow, confused, unable to adapt to the speed of the human attack. "Target their communication arrays," Jake ordered. "I want them silent before they can call for help." Sophie Hayes worked her controls and 3 missiles launched from Vengeance's edge. They streaked across space and impacted the station's massive communication dish, reducing it to scrap metal. The Council would get no warning from this station. "All ships, focus fire on the docking bays," Jake continued. "Destroy any vessels trying to launch. No survivors escape." 6 Council patrol ships had been docked at Triumph when the attack began. Their crews scrambled to launch and defend the station. But they were too slow. Human missiles found them before they could even power up their engines. The docking bays exploded in sequence, killing hundreds of Council soldiers. Lisa Chen's Shadow's Price moved through the chaos like a ghost. Her ship was designed for stealth, coated in materials that absorbed sensor waves and made her nearly invisible. While the other human ships attacked the station's defenses, Lisa brought her ship alongside Triumph's data core. "Initiating boarding procedure," Lisa said to her crew. "We have 5 minutes to get in, download their databases, and get out before this place comes apart." Her team of 12 soldiers moved with practiced efficiency. They cut through the station's hull with plasma torches, forced their way into a maintenance corridor, and fought past the few Council security guards who tried to stop them. Lisa killed 3 Saurid soldiers herself, her rifle firing armor-piercing rounds that punched through their scales like paper. The data core was a massive computer system that held all of the station's military records. Patrol routes, ship movements, communication codes, tactical assessments. Lisa's tech specialist, a young man named Kevin Price, plugged his equipment into the system and began the download. 3 minutes, Kevin said. The encryption is tougher than expected. You have 2 minutes, Lisa corrected. Work faster. On the station's bridge, Commander Vorin realized they were going to die. Half the station's weapons were destroyed. The shields were gone. Fires burned in a dozen sections. His crew was dead or dying, and the attacking ships showed no signs of stopping. Who are they? Vorin whispered. What do they want? His tactical officer, a young Saurid female named Kira, looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. I do not know, Commander, but I am reading unusual energy signatures from their weapons. Nothing in our database matches this technology. Vorin tried one more time to send a distress signal, but the communication system was completely destroyed. They were alone. No one was coming to help, just like Earth had been alone 300 years ago. But Vorin did not know that. He did not remember humanity at all. The final barrage hit Triumph's reactor core. The massive fusion reactor that powered the station went critical and began to overload. Vorin had just enough time to understand what was happening before the entire station exploded in a flash of white light. Lisa Chen and her team made it back to Shadow's Price with 40 seconds to spare. The stealth ship pulled away from the dying station as the reactor went up. Kevin had successfully downloaded all the data they needed. Good work, people, Lisa said to her crew. That information will help us hit the next dozen targets. The Council is about to learn they have been blind for a very long time. Across 12 star systems in the outer sectors, the same scene played out. Human ships emerged from hyperspace, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before Council reinforcements could arrive. Military outposts burned. Communication relays were destroyed. Supply depots exploded. In 6 hours, the Council's entire outer defense network simply ceased to exist. On the Council homeworld of Zentara, High Counselor Tharn received the first reports in his office. He was old now, nearly 400 years by his species counting. He had been High Counselor during the human crisis 300 years ago. He remembered that decision, though he rarely thought about it anymore. Impossible, Tharn said as he read the reports. 12 military installations destroyed simultaneously? What kind of force could accomplish that? His military advisor, a Kryn warrior named General Drax, studied the tactical data with growing concern. The Kryn were a warrior race, proud and aggressive. They had led many of the Council's military campaigns. But even Drax had never seen an attack this coordinated. The weapons' signatures are unknown, Drax reported. The technology appears to be more advanced than anything in Council space. The attackers showed perfect coordination, suggesting a unified command structure and excellent intelligence. Whoever they are, they knew exactly where to strike for maximum impact. Pirates? Tharn suggested. A new criminal organization? No pirate group has these kinds of resources, Drax said firmly. This is a military operation conducted by a sophisticated enemy. We must assume we are at war, though we do not yet know with whom. Then, the broadcast began. Every communication system in Council space, from the smallest personal device to the largest military network, received the same message. Security systems could not block it. Encryption could not stop it. The unknown enemy had complete control of Council communications. A human face appeared on screens across the galaxy. Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Vengeance's Edge, his expression hard and cold. Behind him, a holographic image showed Earth burning, the Devourers consuming the planet, while Council ships jumped away to safety. People of the Galactic Council, Jake said. His voice was quiet but filled with rage. You do not remember us. 300 years is a long time, and you have short memories. But we remember. We remember everything. The image of Earth continued to burn behind him. We are humanity. 300 years ago, we were members of your council. We shared our technology, our culture, our friendship, and when the devourers came, we begged you for help. You had the power to save 12 billion human lives. You had the weapons, the ships, the resources. You chose to let us die because saving us would have been inconvenient. Tharn felt his blood turn cold. The humans. Impossible. They were supposed to be extinct. Only 12 million of us survived. Jake continued. We scattered into the darkness and hid. We spent 300 years building, planning, preparing. We became soldiers and scientists and engineers. We created weapons you cannot imagine. We learned everything about you, while you forgot we even existed. And now, we have returned. The image behind Jake changed, showing the destruction of the 12 council stations. This is only the beginning. We will destroy your military power. We will shatter your fleets. We will make you understand that there are consequences for cowardice. For every human who died on Earth, we will take 100-fold from your forces. Run. Hide. Pray to whatever gods you worship. The reckoning has begun. The broadcast ended. Across council space, trillions of beings stared at their screens in shock and fear. The humans had returned, and they wanted blood. On Haven's Rest, Sophie Hayes watched the broadcast with tears streaming down her face. Ben Cooper gripped his fighter controls, ready for the next strike. Dr. Gregory Nash activated the Reaper protocol, and thousands of hidden drones came online throughout council space. The war had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The council emergency session began 6 hours after the first attacks. Representatives from all 47 species gathered in the Great Chamber on Zentara, their faces showing fear, anger, and confusion. High Counselor Tharn stood at the center podium and tried to maintain order as everyone shouted at once. Silence, Tharn commanded. His voice echoed through the chamber, and the noise gradually died down. We are facing a crisis unlike anything in our history. The humans have returned, and they are attacking our military installations. We must decide how to respond. A Velian diplomat, a species that looked like large insects with blue carapaces, clicked its mandibles nervously. How is this possible? The humans were extinct. We had reports that all their worlds were consumed by the devourers. Clearly those reports were wrong, Tharn said grimly. Somehow, a remnant survived. And they have spent 3 centuries preparing for war against us. General Drax of the Kryn Dominion slammed his fist on his desk. The Kryn were large, muscular beings, with gray skin and sharp teeth. They believed in strength above all else. Then we will crush them. The Kryn's 7th War Fleet will hunt down every human ship and destroy them. We will finish what the Devourers started. No. An Alari representative stood up quickly. The Alari were peaceful, bird-like creatures with feathers of gold and silver. Violence will only create more violence. We must negotiate. We must offer the humans reparations and apologize for our failure to help them 300 years ago. Apologize? Drax laughed harshly. They are attacking us. You want to reward that behavior? Apologize. Apologize. The chamber erupted in argument again. Some species wanted immediate military action. Others advocated for diplomacy. A few suggested simply abandoning the outer sectors and fortifying the core worlds. The council was fracturing under the pressure. Tharn watched the chaos and felt a deep shame. He had been part of the decision to abandon Earth. At the time, it had seemed logical, necessary. The Devourers were unstoppable, and Earth's position was indefensible. Saving humanity would have required an enormous military commitment that might have left the core worlds vulnerable. The math had been clear. But Tharn had not considered what the survivors would become. He had not imagined that humanity would endure, that they would remember, that they would spend 3 centuries preparing for revenge. That had been his mistake. And now the entire galaxy would pay for it. Admiral Patricia Morgan sat in her command center on Haven's Rest and watched the council session through the spy network Lisa Chen had built over decades. Human agents had infiltrated council space years ago, planting listening devices and gaining access to secure systems. Patricia knew everything the council discussed before they even made their decisions. "They are fracturing," Patricia said to her staff. "The council cannot agree on how to respond. Some want war. Some want peace. They are paralyzed." Jake Morrison stood beside her, studying the intelligence reports. "That is exactly what we wanted. A unified council is dangerous. A divided council is weak. Activate Phase 2, Patricia ordered. "I want strikes on deeper targets. Hit their patrol fleets before they can organize a response. And activate Lisa's intelligence network. Start leaking information that will make the council species distrust each other." Lisa Chen received the orders aboard Shadow's Price. She smiled coldly and began her work. Over the years, she had collected secrets about every council species. Corruption, hidden treaties, old grievances, scandals that had been buried. Now, she would release that information carefully, turning the council species against each other. Within hours, classified documents began appearing on council communication networks. The Kryn Dominion learned that the Velians had been secretly selling weapons to Kryn enemies. The Alari discovered that 3 other species had been planning to vote against their trade agreements. Old territorial disputes resurfaced. Ancient prejudices were rekindled. Lisa watched the chaos she created and felt nothing but satisfaction. The council had abandoned humanity when they needed help. Now, humanity would show them what it felt like to stand alone. The Kryn's 7th War Fleet jumped into the Ashfield Nebula 3 days after the first attacks. War Master Krell commanded 300 warships, the pride of the Kryn military. He was confident that superior numbers would crush the human forces. "Spread out and search the nebula," Krell ordered. "The humans are hiding somewhere in this system. Find them and destroy them." Ben Cooper sat in his fighter, part of Strike Squadron Omega, and watched the Kryn ships enter the nebula on his sensors. There were so many of them. A massive fleet that should have been overwhelming. But the Kryn were used to fighting pirates and small rebellions. They had not fought a real war in a century. They had forgotten how to fight an enemy that was prepared. "All fighters," Commander Danny Wright said over the squadron channel. "Remember your training. We are faster and smarter than they are. Use the nebula's interference to mask your approach. Hit hard, break contact, and relocate." "Understood," Ben replied. His hands were steady on the controls. He had practiced this scenario 1,000 times in simulators. Now, it was real. The human fighters moved through the nebula like sharks in dark water. The nebula's dense gases interfered with Kryn sensors, making it hard for them to detect the smaller human craft. Ben and his squadron mates positioned themselves above a group of Kryn destroyers and waited for the signal. "Execute," Danny commanded. Ben dove out of the nebula clouds and locked onto a Kryn destroyer. His fighter carried quantum torpedoes, weapons that could phase through shields and detonate inside a ship's hull. He fired 2 torpedoes and pulled up sharply, accelerating away at maximum thrust. The torpedoes hit the destroyer and exploded internally. The massive warship simply came apart, its structure unable to contain the blast. Debris scattered across space. All around the nebula, the same scene repeated. Human fighters struck from unexpected angles, destroyed their targets, and vanished back into the clouds before the Kryn could respond. War Master Krell watched in horror as his fleet began to disintegrate. "How are they doing this?" Krell shouted. "Our sensors show nothing until they are already firing." His tactical officer had no answer. The human technology was beyond anything the Kryn had encountered. Their weapons were more powerful. Their ships were faster. Their tactics were superior. In 2 hours of fighting, the 7th War Fleet lost 90 ships. The humans lost 3 fighters. Ben Cooper destroyed 4 Kryn vessels himself before his squadron was ordered to withdraw. As he flew back to the human carrier, he thought about his parents. They had died when he was young, killed in an accident on a mining station. But they had both been children during Earth's fall. They had carried that trauma their entire lives. "This is for them," Ben whispered. "For everyone we lost." While the space battle raged, Dr. Gregory Nash activated his greatest creation. Throughout Council space, thousands of Reaper drones came online. They had been hidden for years, waiting patiently for this moment. Now, they emerged from their hiding places and began to hunt. The drones were small, about the size of a fighter, but each one was controlled by an advanced AI that could think and learn. They attacked Council military installations with surgical precision, targeting weapons depots, fuel storage, repair facilities. And every time the Council tried a new defense, the drones learned and adapted. A Council supply depot in the Tertian system was protected by automated defense turrets. The first wave of drones was destroyed quickly, but the second wave knew exactly how the turrets operated. They approached from blind spots, disabled the power systems, and reduced the depot to rubble in minutes. Gregory watched the battle data flow in and felt a grim pride. The Reaper protocol was performing even better than expected. The Council had no answer for it because they had banned AI research centuries ago. They were trying to fight a thinking enemy with predictable tactics. Sophie Hayes led a boarding action on a Council weapons research station in the Gamma sector. Her team of 30 soldiers fought through automated defenses and secured the facility. Inside, they found prototypes of weapons the Council deemed too dangerous for general use. "Look at this," Sophie said, as she examined a graviton beam weapon. They had the technology to create weapons that could have defended Earth from the Devourers. They just chose not to use them. Her second-in-command, a soldier named Carl Norton, shook his head in disgust. They were always more concerned with maintaining peace than actually fighting for it. That is why they will lose this war. They forgot how to be warriors. Sophie downloaded all the research data and then set charges throughout the station. As her team evacuated, the station exploded behind them. Another piece of Council military infrastructure turned to debris. The war intensified over the following weeks. Human forces struck deeper into Council space, destroying military assets and avoiding civilian targets with careful precision. Admiral Patricia Morgan's strategy was working perfectly. The Council's military power was eroding, while their political unity collapsed. Jake Morrison's fleet engaged the Council's 4th Defense Fleet near the Helion Gateway, a critical junction for trade routes. The battle lasted 18 hours. Human ships used gravity weapons that crushed Council vessels by creating intense gravitational fields. They used quantum torpedoes that ignored shields. They used electronic warfare that turned Council ships against each other. When the battle ended, the 4th Defense Fleet was destroyed. The Helion Gateway belonged to humanity, and the Council finally understood that they were losing. On Zentara, High Counselor Tharn received the casualty reports and felt despair wash over him. In 3 weeks of fighting, the Council had lost over 1,000 military ships and countless installations. Human losses were minimal. Less than 50 ships destroyed. "How is this possible?" Tharn asked General Drax. "They number only 12 million. We have trillions of citizens and thousands of worlds. How can we be losing?" Drax looked old and tired. The proud warrior had been humbled by superior tactics and technology. "Because they have been preparing for this war for 300 years, while we grew soft in peace. Because every human is a soldier while most of our citizens have never even seen combat. Because they are fighting for revenge, and we are fighting because we have to. They want this more than we do." Tharn buried his face in his hands. "What have we done? We abandoned them when they needed us," Drax said quietly. "And now they are making us pay for that choice. This is justice. High Counselor. Terrible. Bloody justice. But justice, nonetheless. Across the galaxy, the war continued. Human forces pushed forward, unstoppable and relentless. The Council scrambled to respond. But every decision came too late, and every defense failed. The reckoning was in full swing, and there seemed to be no end in sight. The Battle of the Council Sphere began at dawn on Zentara. Admiral Patricia Morgan committed the entire human fleet to this final engagement. 200 warships emerged from quantum tunnels in perfect formation, appearing in orbit around the Council's symbolic heart like an avenging force. Opposing them was the combined military might of the Galactic Council. Over 2,000 vessels from 47 species gathered together in the largest fleet ever assembled. It should have been overwhelming. The numbers favored the Council by 10 to 1. But numbers were not everything. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Vengeance's Edge and looked at the massive enemy fleet without fear. Behind him, Sophie Hayes worked her console, coordinating the fleet's movements with calm precision. Every human ship was exactly where it needed to be. "This is it," Jake said quietly. "Everything we have worked for over 3 centuries comes down to this battle. If we win here, the Council will have no choice but to surrender. If we lose, humanity dies." "Then we will not lose," Sophie replied firmly. The battle began with a massive exchange of fire. Council ships launched thousands of missiles and energy beams. The sky above Zentara lit up like a second sun as weapons filled the space between the fleets. Human ships wove through the barrage with practiced grace, their advanced engines and AI-assisted navigation allowing them to dodge attacks that should have been unavoidable. The human counterattack was devastating. Quantum torpedoes phased through Council shields and tore ships apart from the inside. Gravity weapons created crushing forces that compressed enemy vessels into balls of twisted metal. Electronic warfare systems hacked into Council ships and turned their own weapons against them. Ben Cooper led Strike Squadron Omega into the heart of the enemy fleet. His mission was to target the Council flagships, the massive command vessels that coordinated the defense. If those ships fell, the entire Council fleet would lose cohesion. "Stay tight," Commander Danny Wright ordered. "These capital ships have heavy point defense. We go in fast, hit the command sections, and get out before they can respond." Ben's fighters screamed through space at speeds that would have torn apart any Council craft. He dodged plasma, fire, and missile locks, his reflexes enhanced by drugs and training that started in childhood. He locked onto a Kryn flagship and fired his entire payload of quantum torpedoes. The torpedoes struck the flagship's bridge section. The massive ship shuddered and began to list as its command crew died. Around Ben, the rest of his squadron did the same to other flagships. Within minutes, 6 Council command ships were destroyed or disabled. Dr. Gregory Nash's Reaper drones swarmed through the battle like a plague. They moved in coordinated groups, attacking weakened ships and exploiting any tactical mistake the Council made, and they learned constantly. Every new Council tactic was analyzed and countered within minutes. The drones were getting smarter with each passing second. Lisa Chen watched the battle from Shadow's Price, monitoring communications across the Council fleet. Her intelligence work over the past weeks had paid off perfectly. Half the Council species had already sent secret messages to human command, offering to withdraw from the battle in exchange for mercy. The Council was betraying itself. "Admiral Morgan," Lisa transmitted, "I am receiving surrender offers from 17 Council species. They are willing to stand down and abandon the fight if we promise not to attack their homeworlds." Patricia Morgan sat in her command center on Haven's Rest and considered the offer. This was exactly what she had hoped for. The Council's unity was shattered. They were no longer fighting as one force, but as dozens of separate factions, each looking out for their own survival. "Accept their offers," Patricia ordered. "Any species that withdraws from the battle will be granted safe passage and protection. But make it clear that any species who continues to fight will be destroyed without mercy." The message went out across all channels. Within minutes, ships began breaking formation and jumping away from the battle. The Alari pulled back first, their peaceful nature unable to stomach the carnage. The Velians followed, then the Saurians, then others. The massive council fleet began to disintegrate as species after species chose survival over loyalty. War Master Krell of the Kryn refused to retreat. His pride would not allow it. He rallied the remaining Kryn ships and launched a desperate attack on the human fleet's center. It was brave, and it was foolish. Human ships converged on the Kryn assault force like predators on wounded prey. Gravity weapons crushed Kryn destroyers. Quantum torpedoes tore through their armor. In less than an hour, the entire Kryn assault was destroyed. Krell died on the bridge of his flagship, still issuing orders as the ship came apart around him. High Counselor Tharn watched the battle from his office on Zentara's surface. He saw his grand fleet, the pride of galactic civilization, being torn to pieces by 12 million humans who refused to die. And he understood finally what humanity had become. They could kill us all, Tharn whispered. They have the weapons. They have the will. They could crack our worlds and make us extinct, just as we allowed Earth to die. But they are not doing it. General Drax stood beside him, his face grim. Because they are better than we are. We abandoned them when they needed us. They are showing us mercy when they could choose vengeance. That is the difference between humans and the Council. They remember what it means to be honorable. Jake Morrison made the decision that would define humanity's future. He opened a communication channel to all Council ships and to Zentara's surface. His face appeared on every screen. Burned and tired from weeks of constant battle. People of the Galactic Council, Jake said. We have broken your fleets. We have shattered your unity. We could continue this battle until every Council ship is destroyed. We could use our weapons to attack your home worlds and make you feel the terror that Earth felt when the Devourers came. We could make you extinct. He paused and let that sink in. But we will not. We are not the Council. We do not punish the innocent for the crimes of their leaders. We are here to teach you a lesson. Not to commit genocide. There are consequences to abandoning your allies. There are consequences to choosing comfort over courage. You will remember those consequences for 1,000 generations. Jake pulled up a holographic document and displayed it for all to see. These are our terms. The Council will cede 3 star systems to humanity as reparation. Rich systems with habitable worlds where we can rebuild. The Council will pay for the construction of monuments to Earth on every member world. Those monuments will list the names of all 12 billion humans who died while you watched. The Council will grant humanity a permanent seat with veto power, and you will ensure that never again will any species be abandoned the way you abandoned us. He looked directly into the camera, his eyes burning with the fire of 300 years of grief and anger. Accept these terms, and the war ends today. Refuse, and we will reduce your civilization to ash. You have 1 hour to decide. The transmission ended. Across Council space, trillions of beings held their breath and waited. On Zentara, High Counselor Tharn gathered the remaining Council representatives. Many were already gone, their species having withdrawn from the battle. Those who remained looked beaten and afraid. The proud Galactic Council had been humbled by a species they had thought extinct. We must accept, Tharn said. The humans have shown they could destroy us, but choose not to. That is a mercy we do not deserve. If we refuse, they will finish what they started, and we will have no one to blame but ourselves. The vote was unanimous. Every remaining Council species accepted humanity's terms. The Treaty of Remembrance was signed on Haven's Rest 1 week later. Representatives from all 47 Council species came to the human station and formally agreed to humanity's demands. 3 star systems were transferred to human control. Reparations were agreed upon. Monuments were commissioned. Admiral Patricia Morgan stood before the assembled Council representatives and spoke for all of humanity. We do not forgive you, she said clearly. We cannot forgive you. 12 billion people died because you chose not to help. That is a crime beyond redemption. But we will not destroy you for it, because that would make us no better than you. Instead, we will rebuild. We will create a new civilization in the systems you have given us. And we will stand as a reminder to the galaxy that actions have consequences. The council representatives left Haven's Rest in silence, carrying the weight of their shame. Humanity began construction on New Earth, in the largest of the 3 systems they had been granted. It was a beautiful world, similar to old Earth, with blue oceans and green continents. The first settlers landed 6 months after the treaty was signed. Jake Morrison walked through the streets of the first human city on New Earth. Children played in parks, while their parents worked to build homes and schools and hospitals. Ships patrolled overhead, always vigilant, always ready. The war was over, but humanity would never be defenseless again. Sophie Hayes joined him at a memorial park. In the center stood a massive wall of black stone. On it were carved the names of all 12 billion people who died on Earth. It had taken months to complete. Sophie found her grandmother's name and placed her hand on it gently. "We did it, grandmother," Sophie whispered. "We made them remember you. We made them pay." Ben Cooper landed his fighter at the military base and climbed out. He was exhausted from constant patrols, but he did not complain. This was the price of freedom. Eternal vigilance. He looked up at the sky and saw the stars, and knew that somewhere out there, the council species were looking at similar skies and thinking about humanity. Thinking about what happens when you abandon your allies. Lisa Chen sat in her office and reviewed intelligence reports. The council was keeping its promises. Monuments were being built on every member world. The reparations were being paid. But Lisa kept her spy network active anyway. Humanity had learned to trust no one but themselves. Dr. Gregory Nash shut down the Reaper protocol. The drones were no longer needed for war, but they remained hidden throughout council space. Just in case. Just as a reminder that humanity could destroy the council any time they chose. The threat was enough to keep the peace. Admiral Patricia Morgan gave her final speech to the human fleet before retiring. She was 70 years old and had spent 50 of those years preparing for war. Now, finally, she could rest. "We have won," Patricia told her officers and crews. "But winning is not the end of our story. Now comes the hard part. Building something worthy of those we lost. Creating a civilization that honors their memory. Teaching our children to remember, but not to hate. That will be the work of generations." She looked at the faces before her. Warriors all, scarred by battle and loss. Earth is gone. We cannot bring it back. But we can build something new. Something strong. Something that will endure for 10,000 years. That is our mission now. That is how we truly honor the dead. The memorial park on New Earth became a place of pilgrimage. Humans came from all the settlements to touch the wall and remember. They brought their children and told them stories of old Earth. They made sure that every human, no matter how many generations removed, would know what had happened and why it mattered. Jake Morrison came to the memorial every week. He would stand before the wall and read names aloud. Thousands of names. He could never read them all in one visit. There were too many. But he tried. He owed them that much. One day, a young human girl approached him. She was maybe 7 years old, with bright eyes and a curious expression. "Why do you come here every week?" she asked. Jake knelt down so he could look her in the eyes. "Because I do not want to forget. These people died alone, abandoned by those who should have helped them. I want to make sure that never happens again, that we never become the kind of people who abandon others when they need us." The girl nodded seriously. "My teacher says the council learned their lesson, that they will never abandon anyone again." "Maybe," Jake said. "But we cannot trust that. We must stay strong. We must stay ready. Because the moment we forget what happened to Earth is the moment it could happen again." The girl looked at the wall of names and then back at Jake. "I will remember," she promised. "I will tell my children, and they will tell their children." "Good," Jake said. "That is how we keep them alive. Through memory, through vigilance, through making sure their sacrifice meant something." The sun set over New Earth, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The memorial wall glowed in the fading light. All across human space, similar memorials stood as permanent reminders of what had been lost and what had been won. The reckoning was over. The rebuilding had begun. And humanity, reduced to 12 million souls but unbroken, stood ready to face whatever future the galaxy held. They had died once. They would not die again.